Welcome back to the channel, guys, where today I've got for you a tale of two bottles. But before we get into that, I got to let you know, I am about a Reese's Pieces away from monetizing this channel and making you sit through commercials because not a lot of people are using my Amazon links or my affiliate codes. So if you want to help the channel at no extra cost to yourself, and in case of the Huben Regulator at negative cost to yourself, you can use my discount code on that one. That'll help the channel. Or if you're shopping for anything on Amazon, look in the description and comments, click on any one of my Amazon links, just get in through there, add whatever else you want to the cart. It doesn't have to be from the link at all. I'll get a little piece of credit for that. So that's all the shilling I'll do here other than sharing the coupon code for this, but let's get into it. So in my right hand, I have the stock Airforce Condor bottle. This has the stock Condor high flow valve on it, and it is an unregulated bottle. In my left hand, I have a 300 bar bottle with a Huben Power Cricket Max M18 threaded regulator. And you'll notice on the top, I also have an Airforce Condor high flow valve. So the idea today is I want to show you guys what kind of power this is capable of, even at a lower setting. So I've got this set right at about 2400 PSI, and I'm trying to launch the JSB 34 grain pellets somewhere under 950. And that's kind of a challenge with the Condor with the stock bottle because this thing's puffing so much power out that it makes it a little bit difficult to do it unless you run it at lower powers and lower hammer spring. So ideally, what I'd like to do is do a back-to-back test on these. This one's set at 2400 PSI. Right now, this one's at 26. So we'll take a couple shots and just let it go down so you can sort of see the performance that this gets. But I'm pretty happy with this. It's got a 50cc plenum on it. You're going to get, if you don't know what regulators do and you're not super familiar with air guns, this is an unregulated bottle. So when you smash that valve in, when you pull the trigger and the hammer hits it, you're putting all of the pressure, whatever pressure is in the bottle, down the barrel. So if it's 3000 PSI, which is the maximum that this bottle holds, that first shot's going to be 3000 PSI. And then every shot, since you're consuming air, is going to be a little less, a little less. Your velocity is going to drop and drop, especially if you have these tuned for a high power tune, like most guys do with the Condor. Sometimes you can have like a nice bell curve, but a lot of guys will just really hammer that valve. So you're probably going to get, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10 real usable shots before you're going to want to refill. On the other hand, when you're using a regulator, first of all, this bottle's 300 bar, so that's 4,500 PSI. This one is 200 bar, so you're starting with way less. That's about 3,000 PSI. So you're starting with 4,500 PSI, and this guy, that air is coming out of the bottle, going up into the regulator piston, and it's getting regulated down to 2,400 PSI in this case. So what that's going to do is now every time you're hitting the valve open, you're getting that same pressure until which point you go under the regulator set point because you've diminished the bottle pressure enough. So hopefully that makes sense to you. What that basically means in a nutshell is you're going to get a lot of consistent shots in a row with this thing. And being that we've got a higher capacity for pressure in this, you're going to get a little bit of benefit there too. So we're going to take this, put it over the chrono, and just kind of show you my results. So hopefully you guys think this is helpful. And I am a huge proponent of these Huben regulators. These things are awesome. All of my Airforce guns, except for my Talon, which I have my own cobbled together regulator on, have these regulators and valves on them, and they're really fantastic. So let's go check it out. First up, I've got the Airforce Condor SS25 with the standard stock bottle, and the pressure on this is right at 2,600 PSI. Hopefully that's focusing. Not sure if you guys can see that, but I've only got the hammer set at setting 4 because that's what I was using on that other setup, the regulated setup. I'm not sure I'm going to even have enough oomph to pop this open because instead of only a 50cc plenum, this 490 or 500cc bottle is acting as the plenum. So in any case, what we're going to do is we'll take some shots over the chronograph here. I've got the FX 34 grain pellets, and we'll just see kind of the performance that we're going to get here. So we'll start with this. Let's get started. Hopefully you guys can see my FX True Ballistics chronograph there. And I'm going to basically just take some pot shots down there at the wood pile, and we'll see what the velocity is. So again, I'm at 2,600 PSI and only 4 on the power wheel, which is way low. Okay, so 933. All right, now we're at a little under 2,600 PSI. 945. right at about 2,500 PSI now. And you can see how much air it takes every time here. All right, 957. So we are a little over 2,400 PSI. And let me check, since I do have an Airforce bottle on my other tank. These are both at the exact same pressure right now. So let's see with hammer wheel 4, and I'm not going to change this hammer wheel the whole time. So we saw a little bit of a bell curve there because it's becoming easier to hit open that valve as the pressure decreases. All right, 958. That jacked us down to about 2,400 PSI. That felt more powerful. Nope, 955. $958. Wow, so we're getting a pretty decent little string here. And now I'm under 2,400 PSI. 956. $948. So that's actually kind of a decent tune. If you only fill your bottle to about 2,500, 2,600 PSI on the stock bottle, you'll get some decent consistency. But that's pretty fleeting because we've taken, let's see. So we're making about 68 foot-pounds. We've taken 8 shots. And by the way, this gun with the stock tank and like heavy Zan slugs, I could get them up to like 950 FPS, which is about 82 foot-pounds, but that's absolutely maxing the hammer spring and only getting like 5 shots. All right, another 948 for 67.9 foot-pounds. 943. Okay, and I'm at 2,200 PSI. So actually, I think 4 on the power wheel and not filling up your tank all the way is a pretty good tune on this thing. But you're going to see it's going to start dropping off pretty quick. All right, 932. $922. Okay, so you see what's going on here. It's just going to drop off pretty quick. So I think that was 10 shots. Okay, actually that was 12. Let's see what shot 13 yields here. All right, 913. So we're falling off pretty quick. And I don't know if you can see, hopefully I'm getting this in the frame, but that was from 2,600 to 2,000 PSI. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap over to this bottle, which is filled a little over 250 bar, and the regulator is set just a hair over 2,400 PSI. You know what, before we do the regulated, so that was 13 shots. We had a standard deviation of 14.14. The highest was 958.2, average was 944, and the low was 913. So you can see how that kind of bell curved down with the stock bottle. Now, I was trying to run that bottle under pressure to make it kind of equivalent to what I've got in the regulated bottle. But usually on an Airforce Condor like that, I would just goose it and run it full power. And if I was doing that with the stock bottle and running it real high on the hammer spring, it would easily be launching those 34 grainers over 1,000 feet per second, which isn't really ideal for stability on pellets. So anyway, there's your stats from the stock bottle. And now we'll jump into the regulated bottle. All right, and now it's time to run the regulated bottle. So I've got about 275 bar in there, maybe 260, and I'm a hair over 2,400 PSI on the regulator set point. And let's just go ahead and take some shots. I have not adjusted the hammer wheel at all, so we're still at that 4 setting that we were before. All right, 916 on that one. $923. And that is a pretty good speed for these pellets. 917. So that's still making 63 foot-pounds. With the other tank at around this same pressure, we were making right at about the same power, maybe a couple foot-pounds more. But this will be much more consistent, and we won't have as much of or any of a bell curve because it has a regulator. All right, 930 on that one. All right, back to 917. And I am just randomly selecting these pellets. I'm not even looking at them. 926. 921. 923. And even though I'm just shooting these fast at the target, I can see my group is a lot better because they're consistent. 922. And let's just see how many shots that was. So that's still 64 foot-pounds. So that was 9 shots. So I'll take 4 shots so that we both have a 13-shot string and we can kind of compare. $9.15. And let's see what's happening here. So my pressure is, you will get a little bit of pressure trailing on these. So my pressure is a little bit lower than it started. So it's 24, almost 2400 PSI. It was a hair over that when I started. And my bottle pressure is now at about maybe 230 bar. All right, 921. And I haven't shot this thing with the regulator for a little while, so you can see as it kind of warms up, it seems to be getting very consistent. 918. And if I was a chipmunk at that wood pile down there, I would be definitely in danger because this thing is very accurate. All right, 915. Did I go over 13 shots? I hope I didn't. Okay, so that was 13 shots. Let's take a look at some stats here in a second. Okay, so here's the stats from that. So much smoother shot string and actually a more accurate gun. So again, 13 shots on that one. The standard deviation is 4.15. If you recall, in the other one, it was like 14. Got a spread of 14 because we did have that one hot shot, but everything else was below. And so that was a high of 929, average of 920, and a low of 915. And I think we can go ahead and view these shots and let's take a look. So pretty consistent. We just had that one high one for whatever reason. And everything else was looking right at around 920-ish. So not so bad. I'll go ahead and flash up both of those screens so you can take a quick comparison. All right, let's close out with some final thoughts here. So you just saw 2 13-shot strings, one from the stock tank with the pressure diminished a bit. And actually, with this only set on the 4 setting on the power wheel, that was actually a pretty decent tune for a non-regulated gun. But still, you saw that bell curve, and once you start going under where you want your velocity to be, it's going to fall off quite quick. Whereas if you have a regulator like this one here, you are going to get that same velocity-ish all the way down until you go under the bottle pressure. So those 13 shots on here, it went from, about 260 bar to about 220. And of course, we've got different units of measurement here. And this one went down from 2600 to 2000 PSI. So let me do a couple of conversions. I'll flash that up on the screen right here so we can see exactly how much each tank went down in both PSI and bar. But this thing right here, these Huben regs are freaking awesome. You'll get still tons of power because they do have a 50cc plenum on them. And you're able to put a 300 bar bottle instead of a 200 bar bottle. So you're going to be able to get much higher fill pressures out of this thing. So that's why I highly recommend getting a Huben regulator for your gun. I've done a couple of other videos on these, including how to remove your stock bottle valve and put it on one of these. You can also get one of these valves from Airforce. Also, you might be able to order one from High Pressure Pneumatics. High Pressure Pneumatics does carry a turnkey Condor setup like this, I believe, in stock. So if I can find it, I'll leave a link to that. They also carry the Huben regulators, but you know, if you want to get them stateside, definitely get them from High Pressure Pneumatics. If you want to get them from overseas and you're okay with the little bit longer shipping time and stuff, I'll give you my discount code, which is RSZA. Put that in, that'll save you 10% and it'll help the channel. But overall, man, these things are cash money. And I could have set this regulator much higher than 2400 PSI and got much more power. In fact, when I first was dabbling with this regulator, I did do that and I was getting a little over 70 foot-pounds, but I found if I want to shoot those pellets at a nice accurate speed of about 920, 930, I can set this thing down to 2500, 2400 PSI and it works great. But these regs, you can set them up all the way to 3000 PSI if you want. You're just going to have to hammer it harder. And, you know, if you're doing slug shooting or something like that, that might be an option for you. But for this, I like it as a pellet shooter. I like shooting those 34 grainers at around 920. And this thing just lets me get a ton of shots all at the same velocity. So it is a major upgrade for the Airforce Condor platform. So hope you guys enjoyed this little science video. Please check out those links for me and hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.